Hello all, good morning, this is Josh, Video Blog 2. Last week I had ended kind of talking about the mother reality, and to follow up on that, I was speaking in terms of mitosis, where a mother cell divides into daughter cells that carry the same genetic code. And to say that our mother reality is divided into daughter realities, I'm describing specifically the way that someone who writes a book will write a book that's not necessarily of this world, but nothing in it came from outside of the mother reality. So it's encoded genetically with all of the information of the reality that the writer knows. He can't create anything, even science fiction, that can't be conceived of or described with words of the mother reality. We'll call it the mother syntax, the description of the world. I'd like to redefine mother reality by saying that it is our first attention. Now, that might be a confusing thing to say the first attention, but let me just say that we, and when I say we, I mean everyone on the planet, has two attentions, a first attention and a second attention. In our first attention, we describe, we define, we use words, we think, we have our reason. And in our second attention, we act. Our first attention is this: everything we see, everything we describe. There's practically nothing that we couldn't see, that we couldn't put into some form or definition. So we're constantly describing the world around ourselves and to other people. The best that I can say about the second attention would be to say that most of us have access to it in our dreaming, but our dreams are very static. They change, they move, they're not as concrete as our waking life. And that's because we don't practice developing our second attention the way we practice developing our first attention. Matter of fact, if I had this really bizarre, incredible, amazing dream, the only way for me to share that dream with you is to force it into my first attention and describe it through terms you could understand. I would have to force it into the syntax of my mother reality. In our dreaming, we can develop our second attention by doing certain things. One of the first things is to look for your hands. If you can find your hands in your dreaming, then all you have to do is be able to develop the attention to hold the image of our hands. Now, in our dreams, we're not as lucid, and in fact, for most of us, we have to practice even being able to have the recall of our dreams. And some of the practices you can do for recalling your dreams with more efficiency is to have a dream diary. When you wake up in the morning, any dream that you can remember, write it down, record it, find some way of recalling it through your description of the first attention. So then you start to set your mind up in a way where it is more willing to start accessing your second attention, which is our creative side. And it doesn't have reason or logic. It just simply is. We act. In our dreams, we're falling off of a cliff, and something in us says, fly. And that's how we survive. Or we wake up, we snap back into our first attention. Now, both of our attentions are locked together inside of us at all times. We just have no access to the second attention because we don't practice it the way that we practice our daily life. Our practice of the first attention makes it so concrete. So if we practice our second attention, it functions very much like this. If I was going to give you a brief description of it, let's say that when you're dreaming, you fall off a cliff, or you're attacked, or something causes a fight or flight reaction in you. And what's the first thing that you do? You wake up. Bam! It pulls you back to your first attention. Now let's, for the sake of argument, talk about the fight or flight response when we're in our first attention. If you're in a motorcycle accident, which I've recently been in, many people will tell you that in those cases of trauma, the world slows down and things happen. And when you try to recall the images, they're jumbly and weird, but you still slow down the world. And that's because from our first attention, we fight or flight, pop into our second attention, which is chaotic. And that's why our visions are jumbly, because at that moment, like anything that we can focus on can pull us away from it. How I survived my accident, I didn't think about roll this way or tumble this way or make sure you're separate from your bike so you don't break your knees. I simply acted. I didn't think. There was no reasoning. And when I tried to recall the images, they were very static, much like in dreaming. But my fight or flight pulled me into my second attention. The problem is that I have no practice in my second attention, so I wasn't able to physically pull myself out of the accident. As weird as that sounds, it is a possibility, the same way as waking up from a bad dream is a possibility when we're in our second attention. So just to break it down for the end of the video blog, I'm going to say that our first attention is order, and our second attention is chaos. Our dreams are chaotic, our waking life is order. We feel very comfortable in order, and because of order, everything is described. Everything has a place. But in dreaming, nothing is described, nothing has a place. Everything is weird and random and shifting. But we can develop our second attention to the point where our dreams have the same concreteness as our waking life. The only difference is that our focal point is more fluid. It moves around, which is why we're capable of so many amazing and incredible things. I'll touch on that more next week as far as the focal point and combining your first attention and your second attention and the practicality of it. But that's pretty much it for this week. So there you go. Video blog 2. See you guys in a week.